Hi, my name's Reverend Caroline Beckett, and I thought that what might be most useful to do today, rather than showing you some of the digital immersive experiences that I've created, is to actually show you some fairly simple idiot-proof ways of creating them yourselves. Now, I say idiot-proof because I'm a technological idiot and I knew very little when I started out, and I don't know much more now, but I have some very kind programs that help me out, and I'm going to just share one or two of them with you in the hope they make your lives easier. So here I am, having never done a demo video before, all fingers and thumbs, sitting in the only clean part of my house. The rest of my house is total chaos, but this is the Zoom zone, so it's immaculate. And we're about to have a go, and we may be interrupted by woofing sounds and general scuffle from my 4 youngsters, my husband, 2 dogs and 5 cats. But hopefully we'll get through this without it going wrong. So here goes. And I'm going to move so you can look over my shoulder as I operate the one single device that I use for creating all of my resources, namely my smartphone. Useful apps for tired creatives. One is Sketch Camera, and if you can navigate past the adverts, what this allows you to do is to load up a photograph that you've taken into this app and turn it into a sketch, so you don't even have to be an artist, just a photographer. That's pretty good news for anyone who can't draw but who knows how to aim a smartphone. Once you've got your image, I've chosen an image of a sunflower that I've taken, then you can look at all the various different options for turning it into a sketch, either in colour or in black and white. One fun thing to do with this is to get your family members to pose like biblical characters, and then you can turn them into black and white sketches for your Sunday school to colour. Here we have a sepia effect, and here a 3-colour effect, which can be quite useful for parish magazines. You can turn it into something that looks like a watercolour, or perhaps into something that looks like an oil painting. Another useful app is this one, Fonto, which is used to put text over images. I often use this to create posters, and it can be a way of getting people to look at familiar things in different ways. I load an image from my files, and this one that I'm going to choose is an image of our votive candle stand from one of my churches, which I'll use for an invitational poster. And then it gives you the option to put text over the top of it. It allows you to choose what font things go in, and I generally choose something that's clear and without serif so that it's accessible to all, including those with reading difficulties. I can choose whether it aligns in the centre, the left or the right, and then I can change the size. I can change the style, so I can make it a different colour. I can also, down the bottom here, I can choose to outline it. So this is my outline colour. I'm going to choose black, and I can choose how thickly it's outlined. Then I can click done. I can tilt, so I can turn it, and I've got various other options. But what I've ended up with is a really simple poster that I can then download and save as a JPEG. That's now in my images, and I can use that for whatever I like. Creating video using the KineMaster app. And I'm going to press on the plus button because I want to start a new project. And I've normally picked this 16:9 ratio. I'm going to show you how I created a piece for Holy Week, comparing the Passion of Christ to the making of bread, letting the images tell the story for me, because that's one thing that you can do when you create a media piece, so that people can make their own connections between the stages of making bread and the sufferings of Christ. A bit like a visual parable. For this I used a set of images from Shutterstock, one of the many places online where you can get photographs for use. But you can also create a library of your own photographs so that you don't need to pay any kind of royalties for using them. I always have my smartphone with me, and whenever I see anything interesting, useful or beautiful, anything that speaks to me of God, I snap a photograph of it so that I have them to use and to share with my congregation. For me, this is part of being mindful in ministry. But if I don't have an image of what I want, for example, the traditional making of bread, then Shutterstock is a really good option to get images you can't get for yourself. So here I'm downloading into my project the images that I've found on Shutterstock. Because I have a subscription, I can use 10 images a month before I have to start paying for them, and I get all the copyright details along with them. Sometimes, as part of my personal meditations, I will scroll through Shutterstock, lingering on any image that captures my attention and asking God what He's saying to me through it. Now I've got these lovely images. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to put some music underneath, and one of the difficulties with finding suitable recorded worship music for use with congregations is that our congregations all have quirks. And I don't know if you've ever, like me, listened to 20 versions of something and thought, my congregation won't like this one because it's like this, they won't like that one because they've changed the words. There's always something, isn't there? So one of the things that I do is when my congregation are worshipping in ordinary time, record them singing. So it's their own voices, the way they sing the hymn, and then I've got a music file of that stored on my phone that I can use whenever I want to. On this particular occasion, I've spotted something that I like on YouTube. I'm actually cheating a little bit here because I'm using my own channel where some of my own media pieces are stored. This was recorded very low tech, simply by me placing my smartphone in the middle of a time of worship, but it has the added advantage of transporting those worshippers back to that place, that time and that connection they were feeling. So the first thing I do is I click the share button, which gives me a link I can copy, and I copy the link. So I'm going to use a little tool now, which is a YouTube to MP3 converter. Okay, now there are lots of these out there. This is the one that I prefer, but the idea is that you paste in the link that you've just copied and you hit the go button. And it will load up what you want to copy. You just check it's the right one. Yes, that's what I want. And I get the option to convert. Now you've got instructions here. It helpfully tells you exactly what to do. Sometimes you get funny things pop up, adverts, or this can't be done. So just hit this arrow here and just ignore them, and it will carry on doing its thing. And then you can click download. Go back into Kinney. Then I'm going to add some audio. So I'm going to go for this little music icon here. Now I know that my audio begins with L because it's living bread. And there I find living bread.
Anglican clergyman
And
John
then I can hit the
Campbell.
plus button. And now I've downloaded it into my project. Now it downloads it wherever your cursor is. So the first thing I need to do is I need to move that. So I press on it until I feel it's grabbed it. And I move it across. So it begins at the start of my piece. Tick. I'm happy with that. That can go away. Now as I press play, it's got a bit of a preamble.
Anglican clergyman John Campbell Crumb, in his famous composition, Now the Green Blade Riser theme.
Now I don't want that bit, so I'm going to scroll ahead a little bit and try and find where the music starts.
You are invited to consider.
There we go. So I've now put my finger on it, so I've highlighted that. So the little green bit there, that is the backing track. And I'm going to flip through the options that it gives me, and it gives me the option to trim and split. So I can trim everything to the left, which is what I want to do because I want to get rid of that little bit of spoken at the beginning. Or I could trim to the right, or I can simply split it and put something else in the middle. But on this particular occasion, I'm going to trim the left-hand side. There we go. And I'm done. So now this starts at the music, and I can put that music, move it along. You feel a sort of little buzz when your fingers got hold of it, and it allows you to move it. And now the music starts where my images start. Now the next thing I might want is, actually the song begins with a green blade and I begin with wheat, so I need another image. So I'm going to go to media, and usefully KineMaster provides a series of blank images which I often use as the starter screen, and it's got a nice little one of some grass there, so I'm going to add that. There we go. So we've got green blades rising. Now the next thing, of course, is if I go to the end of my project, using that little bit at the end, I can move to the end and I can see that I've got more music than I've got images. So I'm going to have to stretch these images to make them fit in line with the music. So I'm going to go back to the beginning, and I can make these images longer, take longer time, simply by pulling them across. And this little red bit here tells me how long something lasts for. So if you can see that, that's telling me that first section lasts 20 seconds. And I can make these images last exactly the same amount of time using that little measuring point if I want to. I'm not going to be too exact about it at the moment because I'm just showing you what can be done. Now the next thing is, tick, I've lengthened some of my images. Now when I play this, what's going to happen is the images are going to jerk from one to the next. And that's quite sudden, and that's not necessarily helpful if you want to create something meditative. So the next option Kinney gives us is the chance to choose how things move from one to another. So you've got a number of different possible transitions just by pressing on that little plus. Now I'm going to go into classic, and I'm going to choose a crossfade, which is one of my favourites because it's nice and gentle. Now as it stands, all that does at the moment is it just gently fades one image into another, but it's still quite sudden. What I can do though is that Kinney gives me the chance, if I tap on that again, to decide using this little slidey dial how long I want that crossfade to take. So if I wanted to be really gentle, I might select 10 seconds, for example. Tick. Now if you watch what happens between those two images, one very gently melts into the other, which can be much more useful. Now there are all sorts of other transitions you can use. I'll demonstrate just a few of them quickly. So for example, this is quite a fun one, picture in picture. This one does an interesting little in and out. Or you can have something a little bit more fun, hearts or stars or circles or bubbles. One of the options that KineMaster gives is the ability to edit an image. So if you click on the image in question, so I'm going to use this image of the hands with the flower, and then you click on this middle button here. This gives you the option to move around a photograph to highlight particular aspects of it, which can be useful if you're encouraging meditation on an icon, for example. You can zoom in or zoom out, and if you press the little equals button, then that keeps the image still for the whole duration that it appears. But if you take off that equals button, you can create a zoom in or zoom out. So for example, here I'm just focusing in on the thumbnail of the hand. So you can see that that first image is focused in tightly on the thumbnail there, and it's going to gradually pan outwards to return to the whole image at the end. You've got some options under layer. I can use it to make a theological point. So for example, I want to liken Christ to wheat. So I'm going to go layer, I'm going to add media, and I'm going to go down to an image that I know I've drawn of Jesus. So here we go, this is one of my watercolours, and all I'm going to do is just make that fill the screen slightly. And then I have a choice. I can choose how it comes in. I'm going to have it fade, and I want it to do it fairly gradually. So it's going to fade in gradually, and then I click on it again, out animation. I want it to fade out gradually as well. There we go. And I want it to be slightly see-through. So you've got this option here, alpha opacity. So if I press on this, I can make that image fade into the background in a sort of ghostly way so that you can see the wheat and also the image. You can add a vocal backing using the button that I've circled here. Speak into the microphone, and when you're finished, hit the stop button. What you record will appear underneath in a purple line, a little bit like the green line of the audio that we manipulated earlier, and all the same tools will work on it. And if you want to put song lyrics or titles, You can use this layer here, T for text. Now I can make that bigger or smaller. I can change the font. As before, a clear dyslexia friendly font which expresses welcome. I can also change the colour, but that's not very visible. I can also change what it looks like. So I could give it an outline and choose to outline in white, for example. And I could, if I wanted to, choose how it comes in. Maybe I won't use fade this time, maybe I'll use a slide down. Also choose how it goes out. And I'm going to choose to go with the slide down again. There we go. Now the last thing you do in Kiny is, if you go back to your main screen, you've got your piece of work which is untitled. Give it a title. And then you export it. And what this does is it finalises it as a file. So you can then export this and it will appear in your videos as a created thing. Now obviously, if you want to then make changes, you can go back in. If it started to get too complicated and you've got too many little green lines underneath moving around, then you can save it as a file and then you can load it back into Kiny and do some more editing on top. For example, you can double layer the voices so that your congregation sings with itself and swells the numbers for greater volume, which can be really encouraging. Once you've exported, this file will exist independently and you can delete the other files you used to make it. But if you want to do any other editing on it or change it in any way, then don't delete the files you used to make it, otherwise Kiny will not be able to find them and you won't be able to do any changes. Once the file exists in this finished form, however, here it is in my videos, then you can't lose any part of it. Our example finished using the tools you've seen. A fuller version is available on my YouTube channel. You are invited to consider the Passion of Jesus Christ alongside the stages of making bread. am the bread of life, said Jesus. Whoever comes to me will never hunger. Lord, give us this day our daily bread. Give us yourself. Amen.